I'm Brooklyn Simone, and welcome to A Look in My Kitchen. Before we get started, be sure to hit the notification bell and subscribe to keep up with this season's episodes. When I was a child, I was surrounded by food essentially all the time. I'm the youngest of four. My mom is the youngest of seven. And so not everybody really had the cooking gene. So I made it a priority for me to just be in the kitchen with my mom. And so essentially I would be right up under her as she was cooking. There's a running joke in my family that I would be eating butter as my mom would cook in the kitchen. So I've just kind of always been in the kitchen. And as my mom was a single parent and would have to go to work every single day, and I would get home before she did, I would be at home watching, I don't know if anybody ever remembers the show Zoom, but there would be this fun sketch, a part of the show, and it would be a food segment where they would just do some really wonky things with food. And so I would do some things as I was watching or just on my free time, freezing grapes, doing just weird random things. And so as I was home in the evening times waiting for my mom to get home, I would kind of fix something in the house. So essentially we would either have Lunchables, oodles and noodles, or mac and cheese in the house. And so I kind of learned to spice up those rotating meals that I had, whether it be adding hot sauce, different seasonings and spices. And so that was my first introduction to kind of cooking by myself and kind of getting accustomed to the kitchen and where things are. And from there, in high school, I got introduced to cooking on a larger scale in my school's nutrition program, and I ended up kind of sticking with it, and that's what introduced me to hospitality as a whole. So I was in a ProStart program and essentially learned to make different starter meals, chicken pot pie, lasagna from scratch, and then we went on to kind of learn basic knife skills, was able to get certified and serve safe. I didn't pass, but that's not the point. And so that was my true introduction to kind of what cooking is and what it can do. And ultimately I went to school. From the introduction, I thought I wanted to own a restaurant, and I essentially went on to major in hospitality and work in hotels in the restaurant industry, which taught me so much, and I was able to learn really closely with chefs that I worked with, and it was just such an amazing experience. And it kind of highlighted the fact that food can really make or break somebody's mood, somebody's day. It can change a person's day, and I think I really love that about food. Oh my gosh, my mom makes this it's such a good comfort meal. It's essentially I don't want to say chicken scraps, but you can do a baked chicken, rotisserie chicken, or any type of chicken. And I'm a white meat girl, so for me, it's never going to give dark meat. But essentially, you'll do that with some leftover rice or white rice, and then you kind of create a gravy, and you kind of put it all together, get the seasonings going, add a little veggies if you want, onions, peppers, and it's this chicken stew, gravy stew. It's so comforting. Wintertime, fall season, I've had it already about 3 to 4 times this year. It hits every time. I still don't have the recipe for that, but it's coming. Enjoying food and loving to eat has not always been the easiest dynamic to manage. I think especially being a young teenage girl and kind of having your development put on the forefront, it can be really challenging to want to go in. And I'm my mom always tells me when I'm eating, the food's not running away. I heard that for years growing up because if it's good, y'all gonna know from me. How I'm eating, it just is a dead giveaway. But it didn't come with its struggles, or it didn't come without its struggles as I kind of developed in my teenage years. And essentially it took me a really long time to understand and kind of appreciate food and my body and how they can come together in harmony, and not feeling ashamed for eating and for how much I ate. And so what really changed is just this concept that I recently learned in the last 3 years of intuitive eating. And essentially what that is kind of understanding that food does not have a bad or good context associated with it. Food is nourishment. Food fuels your body. And I think that was one of the biggest life lessons that I've learned in my early 20s. And with understanding that, I've been able to, because when I would cook and just cook for myself, I never cooked a small amount of food. It would essentially always end up being large portions. And so, understanding that food is to nourish my body, it also took away the shame of like going back for seconds and just things like that. So I was able to understand and kind of pace myself and say like, oh, okay, like, do I want more? Do I want to allow my body to kind of catch up with where I'm at eating, and then I can come back if I'm still hungry? Do I want dessert? Like, kind of having this internal dialogue as I'm eating and kind of really listening to my hunger cues has been a game changer. And I think it's something that wasn't necessarily spoken about in learning nutrition and learning about our body and learning about just everything in relation to food and kind of building upon a healthy diet, like eating habits and diet and things like that, especially just growing up in a Black community. What tends to happen is, you get put down for not eating all of your food, or you're being wasteful of not knowing how to eat chicken wings right, or just like all these things. I think it can become really toxic and negative and spew really harmful behaviors throughout the course of your life if you don't do the work or know how to start doing the work to kind of find out and unlearn those behaviors. When I was in college, I was also in the hospitality club. We went to, it was like this food expo, and what happened? I was at this food expo, y'all. It's the craziest thing. And essentially you're trying different foods, you're trying like different gadgets. It's just a whole bunch of stuff going on. And my friend's like, oh, let's do oysters. And I'm just like, oh, I already know I'm a texture girl, so it was never going to it's good for me. Like, I already knew that, but I'm like, I'll try it because I have this rule, especially when it comes to food, at least try it one time. And so I think I still have the video, y'all. I sent it to my family. My sister still makes fun of me for it. I tried the oyster. Nobody told me that you kind of just need to swallow it. You don't need to chew it or anything like that. But my face is clenching up just thinking about it. I started chewing the oyster. The texture was so slimy. It was so disgusting. Like, you guys can tell, I will never eat another oyster again. It was not worth the saltiness. Like, half the time I throw it away. If the meal did not turn out how I envisioned it, I'm so disappointed. And I get it from my mom, honestly. Like, we'll be in drive-thrus or we'll go somewhere and they'll be like, oh, we're actually out of that, ma'am. And she's like, what? Like, she's so devastated. Her mood changes instantly. I tell y'all, the power of food is crazy. But essentially, if a meal doesn't turn out how I want it to, I do not eat it. But I'm really picky. I'm really hard on myself. And a lot of times I don't just cook for myself. So my friends, or if it's my family, they'll still eat the meal and they're like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, like, this is hitting. I'm just very particular because I have a vision of how I want things to kind of come together. And so I'm not going to say I always throw it away because I have to, like, I'm not trying to be wasteful, but I'm just super hard on myself. So I'll just say I can be dissatisfied with the outcome. On the flip side of that, there are times when I know I'm still working to achieve a certain result in a recipe, so I can't just throw it away, or I just can't give up. So it's kind of trial and error. For example, I started working on my mom's mac and cheese recipe when I was a sophomore in college. I haven't been in school for 6 to 7 years, and I'm just now mastering that recipe. Like, every time I went to make it, I was missing something. I would forget the egg, the butter, the sour cream, or something, some component. And I don't know why I was missing it, or it just wasn't, it didn't have the same comfort as my mom's, and I know sometimes things just will never be the same, and so I just kind of mastered it the last holiday season. And now that I've gone and do that, I started working on my own mac and cheese recipe, and so I wanted mine to be made in like a cast iron skillet, and so kind of doing trial and error with that. Really just looks like, okay, what consistency do I want? What contributes to the consistency, what flavors do I want, what contributes to it, and so going back each time, adding and changing one component, and once I master one component, I'm going to move on to the next. And so I think that's the really fun part about cooking and developing a recipe, is you're the scientist behind it, and so it's really up to you on what you want to achieve. What you guys can expect from this season of A Look in My Kitchen is truly just the inspiration of why I started cooking and what I've experienced from cooking. So that's friendship, that's laugh, that's tears, that's self-development. Honestly, I've grown so much over the years, as have my recipes, and the stories that have followed each recipe, each trial and error have just come right along with me. And I think being able to share that with the people that I care about the most has been the most like fulfilling part of, bringing this to you all. And I'm just really excited for you guys to really see kind of how much I act up in the kitchen, like what goes into the recipes, and just how much I truly care about cooking and just the joy that it brings. And I know a lot of people experience frustration or just kind of exhaustion, especially like working full time and having to come home and cook. Like, I am a 30-minute meal person, so if it's 30 minutes and less, like that's the goal for me. And so a lot of my meals are like semi homemade, so I'm hoping to really this is my gift to you all, along with the stories and the anecdotes. It's just to kind of give you guys a way for you to balance your life without having to make cooking harder than it needs to be. While you guys are keeping up with this season of A Look Behind My Kitchen, be sure to follow me on my socials to keep up with grocery hauls, tips, and more lifestyle content.